Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. This is America's first sake podcast, and I'm your host, John Puma from the Sake Notes. I'm also the administrator over at the Internet Sake Discord, and around these parts, I'm the sake nerd guy. I'm not the sake samurai guy.
I am your co-host, Timothy Sullivan. I am a sake samurai. I'm a sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and chatting about all things sake and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
So, Tim.
Yeah.
I think we're overdue now for our Wild Rice series. And I also feel like today's rice is one that we hear kind of often on the show.
Yes, and it's not easy to say either.
No, it was quite a challenge. I remember when I first encountered it, I usually kind of just saw it in writing. It was a word I'd never heard out loud. And I thought it was, interesting. And I would never actually have to say it out loud. And then I started doing a sake podcast. And it came up alarmingly quickly and alarmingly often.
Well, put me out of my misery and dazzle me with your pronunciation. What rice are we going to be tackling today?
Today is Gohyakumangoku.
Oh my God, that was perfect.
Yeah, I want to say that back in April of 2020, not nearly as good sounding. I don't think that goes quite as well. I think I have probably said a lot of Gohyakumang or something. I don't know. Might have just looked at all those syllables and just was paralyzed with fear. I don't know. Oh my God. Gohyakumangoku.
Yes.
That's a lot.
It's a mouthful. Gohyakumangoku.
Yeah. So, well, Tim, what does that mean anyway? It's a lot of words, I'm assuming. So what's it mean?
Oh gosh. Well, it's an interesting name because it does actually have like an origin story to it. I'll give you the literal translation first. So Gohyaku means 500. Man means a unit of 10,000. And then Goku means it's a measurement of weight of rice. So it means 5 million koku. So you take 500 times 10,000 and then you get 5 million koku. And a koku is a measurement of rice that's about 300 pounds, a little bit more than 300 pounds.
Okay.
So
this word actually has you doing math.
Yes, it does.
And it's a measurement of rice.
Yes. So the sake rice Gohyakumangoku was registered in Niigata Prefecture in 1957. And in that year, Niigata, which is a center for eating rice production, they had a bumper crop and they had great amount of rice produced in 1957. And the farmers of Niigata collectively produced 5 million koku. And again, koku is a measurement of weight of rice. And this was such an achievement that they named this sake rice after that achievement. So Gohyakumangoku means 5 million 300-pound bags of eating rice.
So let me get this straight.
Does that stir your emotions?
They're sitting around and they're like, oh my God, we made so much rice. We have so many rice fields and our yields are incredible. Also, we're about to name a new rice. I've got it. So much rice, which is basically the name of this one.
Yeah, so that is the kind of the background of where this name comes from. And it's a basic nod to Niigata being a home base, a center for rice production. I think in the popular imagination in Japan, Niigata is seen as the land of plentiful rice. So I think it's a nod to that idea that Niigata is a real place for rice to be grown.
It's interesting. As a sake lover, the thing that I think about when I think of Niigata is so many sake breweries. But I guess if you have so much rice, it's kind of natural that you're also going to have so many sake breweries.
Yeah, Niigata has the most sake breweries of any prefecture, and they clock in about 89 or 90, so about 90 breweries.
Whew.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's quite a bit. So, all right, so we've got this bizarrely named rice.
It's not bizarre. It's perfectly logical when you think about it.
I'm still thinking about it. Still, the logic's escaping me. But that's not important. The important thing is, what's the story with it? Is this an heirloom rice, or would they crossbreed this?
Let's look at some of the details about the development of this rice. It is a crossbreed. It is a mix of a rice called kikusui, and you may know that name. Kikusui is the name of a sake brand in Niigata, but
yes.
It's also the name of a sake rice. And then there's another sake rice, Shin 200 Go, Shin Nihyaku Go in Japanese. And these two sake rice strains were crossbred in 1938. They created this rice, and because of World War II happening, it wasn't really put into use until the post-war period. And as I mentioned before, it was finally registered in 1957. And it slowly gained prominence, but the origin prefecture, this is important, the origin prefecture for Gohyakumangoku sake rice is Niigata. So they claim ownership over this rice. It's grown in other prefectures now, but it really is identified with Niigata.
Yeah. It's definitely one that when I hear the word, I always think, oh, Niigata. All right. Yeah. It's purely. Now, because I associate it with Niigata, and because it's actually from there, what are we looking at as far as, like, what's it bringing to the table from a flavor and aroma standpoint?
Yeah, well, this sake rice is really well known for producing the classic Niigata profile, pretty logically. It produces a light and clean sake and pretty mild aromas. And the overall word I've heard used to describe sakes made with Gohyakumangoku is a little bit airy. Like, not dense, not concentrated, but more airy, light, and clean. And, it's a classic sake rice in that it does produce large rice grains. Compared to eating rice, sake rice is grown, it has a little bit of a larger grain size, a little bit of a taller stalk usually. And these are hallmarks for things you really want to look for when you're selecting a sake rice to use for your sake. And Gohyakumangoku really has that.
And where does this guy fit in as far as its volume of sake rice? I think we talked about a somewhat dominant position that Yamada Nishiki has.
Yeah.
Where does Gohyakumangoku fit into this?
We have to differentiate here between sake produced encompassing eating rice and sake rice. But if we just look at sake rice alone, Yamada Nishiki, which is the king of sake rice, that accounts for, it changes every year, but roughly between 33 and 36% of all sake rice produced. And it is the most grown sake rice. There's about 100 varieties that are grown specifically just for sake. And of those 100, Yamada Nishiki is the big kahuna, and about 33 to 36% or so. And our Gohyakumangoku, the star of today's episode, it comes in number 2. So
number 2?
Yeah. So about 24% of those 100 varieties is dedicated exclusively to Gohyakumangoku. So this comes in number 2 in the volume of rice grown. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
It's no slouch.
Our little Gohyakumangoku's making good. Number 2 in the world.
So it's number
great.
2. Yeah. And I did some research for Gohyakumangoku for today's episode, and I heard it referred to as the Yokozuna of the East.
The Yokozuna of the East? Yokozuna is like a rank in sumo?
Yes. So it's like some top, like, champion of sumo, I think.
Okay.
Any listeners who are sumo experts, please let us know. So Yokozuna of the East is kind of like the champion of the East, and there's also Yokozuna of the West. And when you're referring to sake rice, so Yamada Nishiki is grown in Hyogo, which is in the far west of Japan, and the Gohyakumangoku is from Niigata, which is on the eastern side comparatively. So I've heard it referred to as like the big kahuna of the East versus the big kahuna of the West, Yamada Nishiki. Kind of funny.
All right. Yeah, I can see that. And then the two of them can collide in the middle and battle one another for dominance.
Yeah, so Gohyakumangoku is the number 2 sake rice in Japan. So I've been waiting for Gohyaku to have its day on our show.
Excellent. And today is that day.
Yes.
And, Tim, we have a sake that uses Gohyakumangoku today.
Yes.
And because Gohyakumangoku, despite being available and being utilized in a lot of different sakes in a lot of different parts of Japan, was born in Niigata, as you pointed out. So the sake we're going to be drinking today is from Niigata.
Yes. Do you want to give us an intro to our sake for today, our Gohyaku superstar for today?
Sure. Our Gohyaku superstar is Koshi no Kanchubai Gold Junmai Ginjo, using Gohyakumangoku rice from Niigata, is polished down to 55% of its original size. Sake meter value, that measurement of dry to sweet, is +3, so just north of neutral, I want to say. Acidity is 1.6. And this is interesting. The alcohol by volume is only 14%, so it might be something a little lighter. Tim, I don't know if I've ever had this. Are you personally familiar with the sake?
I am not. So we're both going to have a fresh reaction to this sake. All right. So should we get it open and in the glass?
Let's do that.
Okay.
I do love it when we have the same sakes, Tim. If we can't be in the same room, at least we have the same beverage.
Yes. Yes, that's right. So we are drinking the same sake. We're going to focus on this Koshi no Kanchubai for today's Gohyakumangoku episode. And if the god of sake is on our side, this is going to be a really good representation of that Niigata style.
All right. So, speaking of Niigata style, this is pretty clear.
Yep, really clear.
Very crystal clear.
Yeah, and we had our episode on charcoal filtering, and we talked about how popular that is in Niigata. So I would take a guess that this sake's been charcoal filtered.
I would say so too, if I had to hazard a guess.
Yeah, let's give it a smell. I'm gonna give it a swirl in my wine glass.
That's kind of pleasant.
Yeah,
A little bit light.
A little bit
hint of
light.
fruit.
And I'm also picking up on a very light ricey note as well.
It's there, almost like a sweet ricey note.
Yeah, and when I'm talking to people about rice aromas, I often think like, oh, if you have a rice cooker at home, or if you've cooked rice in a pot and you take the lid off after it's done cooking and you get that wafting aroma of freshly steamed rice, like that is an aroma we look for a lot when tasting sake and smelling sake. And I get just a hint of that, like maybe a wafting steaming rice from the other room. Yeah, so a very gentle rice aroma. I think that restrained is the only way to describe this aroma.
Yeah, it's definitely restrained. It's not overwhelming in any way. It is. You do have to look for it.
It's really light.
Our noses are in these glasses trying to pick it up, and it is very, very light.
But it's elegant. I don't view that as a defect. Like a light aroma for me is really enjoyable and doesn't have to like slap me in the face to make me take notice of it. So I really enjoy this aroma a lot.
Yeah. So shall we sip?
Yeah.
All right. I want to say this keeps up pretty well with the aroma.
Yeah. For me, it's even more rice focused on the palate.
Yes.
The flavor is dry and kind of rice forward, steamed rice, maybe a little bit of mochi rice. And just a hint of umami. Like there's a little savory note on the finish. I don't know if you pick up on that at all, John.
I'm getting my savoriness a little bit earlier.
Okay.
And I'm getting like a little bit of a residual tiny bit of fruit that lingers that I'm finding very pleasant. I'm kind of really liking that aspect of it. But this is a little bit more rice driven than your typical Junmai Ginjo, right?
Right. And it's interesting. We've talked a lot about Yamagata sake. So Yamagata is a prefecture a little bit north of Niigata, and their style is very fruity and more exuberant. And this is really a classic Niigata sake in a lot of ways. It's lighter, it's cleaner, it has very gentle ricey notes on the palate, and it finishes dry. I find the aftertaste is really crisp and dry as well. Do you agree?
I do. It's nice. I remember recently we were talking about how on a sake that we thought was going to kind of bowl us over because one of the numbers was particularly high. I'll let people who have been listening go back and remember what we're talking about. But we commented how these things really didn't stand out because the sake was really well in balance.
Yeah.
This is also very well balanced. Like all of these things that we're talking about are present, but none of them are really taking command of your experience here. It's all just these nice little things you get to experience in this very pleasant, somewhat light, crisp sake.
Yeah, I remember that sake. We were looking at it on paper, and the numbers said, oh, this might be sweet. And it did not come across sweet at all because it had that balance you're talking about, and I agree that we have this here as well. It's really interesting. You know, one thing I've heard from a lot of sake brewers in Niigata, some of those 90 breweries that are in this prefecture, is that they like their sake obviously to be more restrained. And one of the ideas behind that style of sake, this regional style, is that they want to put the focus on the food, on the cuisine. And they want clean, light sake to be a palate cleanser and support the dishes, but not take center stage or grab your attention away from the food. So this is really a sake probably designed from the ground up to be, you know, really a supportive type of sake for food pairing.
Could be. And what are your things? Very likely.
Probably not.
No, I think very likely. Having just heard you say that, what kind of food?
Well, one of the advantages of this in the background type of sakes is that you can pair it very broadly. It's not going to clash with many styles of food. I think one of the primary things to keep in mind when pairing with this style of sake is the weight of the food. This is 14% alcohol. It's a little bit on the quiet and lighter side, which is common for Niigata. So you just want to keep in mind that, you know, barbecue ribs and deep fried whatever may not be the best match for this.
That might be a little too much.
Yeah. Those Cajun fries might not be a good choice with this.
No. But I think that like most mild flavored foods are going to go very well with this mild flavored sake.
Yeah. I'll tell you what popped into my mind. It is now autumn.
Yes.
Autumn of 2021, and
already
it is starting to get chilly. Today was like our first really chilly day, and I loved it.
It was nice. I busted out my coat today. No jacket. Today was a coat.
Well, one of the very popular foods in Japan in the autumn is called oden. I think we've talked about oden on the show before.
I am certain we've talked about oden on the show before.
Yes. So oden is different cuts of vegetables and fish cakes and things that are simmered in soy sauce broth. And it is savory. And it's interesting because the foods are kind of neutral. Like think about daikon radish, and you simmer it for a long time in this very delicious dashi soy sauce broth, and it absorbs all those flavors, and you eat it warm. And that type of warming but kind of light dish is something that I really think goes well with this. It's a very delicious but gentle kind of stewed veggies, and you can have a little more liquid or a little less liquid depending on how you want to enjoy it. But that flavor profile is something that really came to me, and I said that would go well with this. Now, let me ask you a question, John. What do you think about serving this sake, this Koshino Kanchubai Gold? Again, it's a Junmai Ginjo. What do you think about serving this warm?
You know, I'd give it a shot. And I am, for people at home who probably know this already, I am not somebody who usually jumps on warming up sake. I feel like it takes the right drink to make me jump onto that idea. And I can do this. I would give this a shot.
So it's not an absolute no for you.
Absolutely not.
All right.
No, it's absolutely not a no. I would give this a shot. And to think like, oh, I'm going to warm up a Junmai Ginjo, it just sounds wrong to me. But
we gotta break those stereotypes.
Break those stereotypes. Go out of my comfort zone. Maybe that'll be my sake resolution for next year. Maybe I will go outside of my comfort zone, and I will start by warming this sake. In January, I will grab some Koshino Kanchubai Gold, and I will warm it up. Or maybe I'll just get a head start on things.
Yeah. Well, I have a prediction. If you did warm this up, I think that little umami note that we picked up on the palate.
It's not going to be so little anymore.
That's right. It's a little quiet right now, but I think if you warmed this up, it would become more pronounced and really pair well with warm oden even better. So I am on board with recommending this to warm. So this has Gohyakumangoku in it, so the sake rice for today. And what I pick up on is that lighter edge to this. This is not a heavy, rich, or concentrated sake in any way.
No.
And I think that sake rice, Gohyakumangoku, lends that airiness, that lightness to it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And this works. And this is, as much as I am open to having this warm, this is an absolute treat chilled. It is really, really nice.
So you're enjoying it even though it's not a tropical fruit bomb?
Absolutely. There's more to life, Tim. There is more to life. I may be number one Ginjo fan sometimes, but I do think this is really nice. I do like my light sakes too, Those are the ones that I can sip on the couch. So, all right, but whereabouts in Niigata is Niigata Meijo?
This brewery is in central Niigata. So it is not in the north, not in the south. It's right in the center of the prefecture. And it's a very snowy region, and I'm sure they have lots of oden in the winter.
It gets nice and chilly over there.
It sure does. Yeah. So I think they might have had that. We need a sake that would be good with warmed up food. I think they had that on their mind when they were imagining this sake.
Nice. I can go for that. I can do some of that.
Yeah.
All right.
So, John, do you feel that you have learned something about the number 2 kahuna of sake rice, Gohyakumangoku?
I feel like it's a rice that doesn't get a lot of attention. Like I know, people, when they're sake nerds, when they're talking about their sake rice that they like, they talk about Yamana Nishiki. They love to talk about omachi. They talk about their kind of weird little rices from here and there, but they don't talk about the number 2 sake rice. And I think that it might be, as you pointed out, that the prefecture responsible for it kind of likes to use this as a rice and a sake. They want to be understated, and they want to be complementary to a dish that shines. And if the sake isn't shining, then people aren't thinking about the sake. They're just thinking that the food was really good.
Yep.
And it's like, well, the sake is playing a really nice supporting role that they're maybe not noticing.
Yeah. And I think we could describe Gohyakumangoku as a workhorse sake rice.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
It's a workhorse.
A lot of breweries buy Yamada Nishiki for their super premium Junmai Daiginjo, and Gohyakumangoku fills this role with your Junmais and your Junmai Ginjos and your Honjozos as well, where you need something that will be stable, reliable, not too showy, and I think Gohyakumangoku really fills that void there.
Excellent, excellent. This is one of my favorite series. I cannot wait for the next one because I love going deep into these rices and finding out all the little things about them that I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, you like getting wild.
Apparently. Rice gone wild.
When it comes to rice, of course.
Yeah, when it comes to rice, sure. Absolutely.
All right, John, I'm craving oden now, and I am ready for dinner. All right. Well, thanks to you, John, and thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. We really do hope that you're enjoying our show. Now, if you would like to show your support for Sake Revolution, the best way to help us out is to join us on Patreon. We are a listener-supported show, and we rely on contributions from our patrons to help bring you Sake Revolution every week.
That's right. And on top of that, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you download your podcast. It really does make a huge difference. And we do appreciate everybody who does listen and everything that you do to get the word out about our show.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. And as always, if you would like to learn more about any of the topics, sake rice, or sakes that we talked about in today's episode, please visit our website, sakerevolution.com, and there you can check out all the detailed show notes.
And for all of your sake question needs, we have an email address that you should be sending them to. That email address is feedback@sakerevolution.com. This is kind of where we get our ideas for shows in a lot of cases, guys. So if you want to be a part of the experience, send in those ideas.
Help us out.
Send in those questions. So until next time, please remember to keep drinking all that sake and kanpai.